AITA for telling my boyfriend that if he wants me to pay for his family, he should start calling me Mom. I earn a little more, so he wants me to pay for everything. I, 29, female, have been dating my boyfriend Tyler, 30, male, for about 2 years now. For the most part, things have been really good between us. He is funny, sweet in his own way, and genuinely makes me feel cared for most of the time. But, like any relationship, there are little issues that pop up, and one in particular has been growing into something I just cannot ignore anymore. It started off so small that I barely noticed it. The first few months, if we were out and he forgot his wallet, I would just pick up the coffee or the lunch tab. No big deal. Relationships are partnerships, and I figured we could take turns. Then, it shifted a little. If we went to brunch with his parents or his sister, somehow it would always fall on me to pay. Tyler would give me that sheepish little smile, maybe mumble something like, "Oh babe, you make more than me, and you know they are tight on cash," and I would just wave it off because, yes, technically I do make more than him. I am a junior architect and he works in tech support, so while it is true, it is not like I am making 6 figures either. Still, I love him, so I let it slide. But then it kept happening. It was no longer just casual outings. His family began to invite us to full-on dinners, sometimes with extended relatives, and somehow the expectation was that I would pick up the entire bill. I am talking 5, 6, even 7 people at nice restaurants, each ordering appetizers, entrees, desserts, and drinks without a second thought. No one ever offered to split it, no one even pretended to reach for their wallet. Tyler would just give me that look, that unspoken, "Come on, babe, do it for me," look, and I would end up paying. I am embarrassed to admit it now, but I think I felt like if I refused, I would seem petty or stingy, and I did not want to make things awkward. The final straw happened about a month ago. We were out at this trendy Italian restaurant downtown with Tyler's parents, his sister, her boyfriend, and his uncle who was visiting from out of town. The whole evening, they ordered like we were at an all-you-can-eat buffet. Bottles of wine, premium dishes, desserts for the table. When the bill came, it was almost $300. I just sat there, staring at it, feeling my stomach drop. Tyler casually leaned over and whispered, "You got this, right, babe?" It would mean a lot to me. I do not know what came over me, but I was so tired and frustrated. I tried to keep it light, so I joked loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Honestly, if I am paying for all of you like this, you might as well just start calling me Mom." There was this awkward little pause, then everyone kind of laughed uncomfortably and went back to their conversations like nothing had happened. Tyler chuckled too, but I could tell he was a little embarrassed. Good, I thought. Maybe he needed to be. But apparently not, because a few days later, his mom texted me inviting us out to dinner again, this time to celebrate his sister's new job. Tyler immediately said, "Babe, you will come, right? And bring your card." That was it. I snapped, not in an angry way, but in a firm, crystal-clear voice. I said, "I will come, but I am not paying unless you actually call me Mom." In front of everyone. Loud and clear. He looked at me like I had just sprouted a second head. His face went pale, and he stammered, "What? No way. That would be so weird." I just crossed my arms and told him I was dead serious. If he wanted me to keep footing the bill like I was some sort of matriarch providing for the family, he better start treating me like one. I was done being the silent ATM at the table while everyone pretended it was normal. Ever since that conversation, things have been tense. Tyler keeps trying to guilt-trip me, saying things like, "You know my family is not well off, and, it would just be easier if you kept helping," but I refuse to back down this time. I told him that I am happy to contribute fairly when we go out, but I am not going to fund his entire family's social life single-handedly. If he cannot handle that, maybe he needs to rethink how he sets expectations with his parents and siblings, because I sure as hell am not going to keep playing this game. Now we are scheduled to meet up for the celebratory dinner next weekend, and I am holding firm to my condition. If Tyler wants me to pay, he is going to have to stand there, look me in the eyes in front of his whole family, and call me Mom like I am the one who raised him and is now rewarding him with a steak dinner and a glass of Cabernet Sauvignon. Part of me hopes he refuses, because frankly, the whole thing has opened my eyes to a bigger issue. It is not really about the money. It is about respect, about boundaries, and about not letting someone take advantage of you under the guise of love or support. I still care about Tyler. I do. But I am starting to wonder if he cares about me enough to stand up for me when it counts, or if he just sees me as a convenient solution to his family's financial awkwardness. Either way, I guess I will find out soon enough, at a table full of people, waiting to see if he is going to call me mom, or if he is finally going to step up and be a partner who has my back instead of pushing me in front of the check every time. AITA. Update 1. So the day of the next dinner finally rolled around, and I was curious to see how Tyler would handle things. I was feeling a strange mix of nerves and amusement, almost like I was walking into some sort of bizarre social experiment. We met up at this mid-tier steakhouse, the kind of place where everything is slightly overpriced and they charge extra for a sprinkle of Parmesan on your pasta. His parents were there, along with his 2 brothers and one of their cousins who was visiting from out of town. Everyone seemed in good spirits, making small talk and chatting away like nothing was wrong, like there had not been this growing financial tension festering underneath the surface. Dinner went on as usual. His family ordered drinks, appetizers, entrees, and desserts like we were all part of some corporate expense account outing. Tyler acted completely normal, laughing, joking, nudging me under the table a few times like everything was fine. But I noticed he kept glancing at me when the waiter dropped off the check folder, like he was waiting for me to just cave and do what I had always done before. I waited. I watched him. He fiddled with his phone, pretending to scroll through something urgent. He did not even touch the bill. He just sat there, avoiding eye contact, completely passive. I sat there for a few beats, giving him the chance to make a move, to live up to the agreement we had made. When it became obvious he was going to do nothing, I smiled, pulled out my wallet, took out just enough cash to cover my meal, including tip, because I am not a monster, placed it neatly inside the folder, and said with a cheerful, unmistakably loud voice, "I'm covering myself tonight." The entire table fell silent for a moment, the kind of silence that feels thick and sticky in the air. His mom blinked at me like she did not quite understand what was happening. His brothers exchanged glances. His dad, after a long and uncomfortable pause, let out this awkward little cough, pulled out his wallet, and covered the rest of the bill without a word. There was a lot of hushed whispering after that, little looks tossed around like footballs, but no one directly said anything to me. The tension was so palpable you could have cut it with the butter knife sitting untouched on my plate. The real show started after we got into the car. Tyler was seething, his hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles were white. He did not say anything at first, but the anger was practically vibrating off of him. Finally, as we pulled out of the parking lot, he exploded, accusing me of embarrassing him, of making his family feel awkward, of being selfish and cold. I kept my voice calm and even, reminding him that the deal had been clear from the start. I told him, "You call me mom, I pay. Otherwise, no." He huffed like a child, telling me I was being immature and childish. I just shrugged and said, "Better a childish mom than a free wallet." Things between us were frosty for the next few days, but we still kept seeing each other. I guess part of me wanted to believe he would get the hint and change. Spoiler alert, he did not. A week later, his family wanted to go out again, this time for his cousin's birthday. I agreed to come because at this point, honestly, I was curious how deep this rabbit hole went. Dinner played out almost identically. Everyone ordered without a second thought. The check came. Tyler stared at his phone like it was going to save him. I once again pulled out cash for just myself, placed it neatly on the tray, and smiled. His dad paid the rest. More awkward whispers. More side glances. Tyler sat there stewing silently the whole ride home, but this time he did not even bother yelling. I think he realized it was pointless. The third time was some random casual dinner, a last-minute thing his mom threw together to celebrate some minor achievement of his younger brother. I showed up, polite and smiling, ordered my meal, enjoyed my evening, and when the check came, I did exactly what I had done before. Paid for myself, not a penny more. Same stunned reactions. Same heavy, uncomfortable silence. Same frustrated Tyler storming out after the meal like I had personally attacked his honor with a butter knife. What blew my mind was that despite all this, despite 3 dinners in a row where the pattern was crystal clear, Tyler still seemed to think something would magically change. He did not step up. He did not call me mom. He did not offer to cover even his own parents. He just kept sitting there, hoping for a miracle. I thought maybe he would start paying himself, but no, he kept expecting some miracle to happen. Update 2. Last night already felt different the moment we stepped into the restaurant. It was not like the casual places we usually went to where the menus were sticky and the waiters wore sneakers. This was one of those upscale places with low lighting, white tablecloths pressed so tightly you could bounce a coin off them, and a sommelier who hovered nearby like a polite ghost. It was the kind of place where the menus came without prices listed next to most of the entrees, because if you had to ask, you were already in the wrong place. The kind of place where even a side of mashed potatoes somehow cost $25, and where ordering water came with the follow-up question of, still or sparkling? The second we walked in, I could feel the difference in the air. Tyler was jittery as hell, shifting in his seat, tapping his fingers in restless little beats against the rim of his water glass, checking his watch every few minutes as if he had an important meeting he desperately wanted to escape to. His leg was bouncing under the table so fast that the silverware on his side was vibrating. Meanwhile, his family was behaving like it was just another Thursday night out on someone else's dime. His mom was laughing too loudly at her own jokes, his brothers were already 2 beers deep, and his dad was perusing the wine list like he was about to drop $1,000 without blinking. I sat there, keeping my face neutral, smiling, making polite conversation, and pretending not to notice the way Tyler kept glancing at me out of the corner of his eye, his expression caught somewhere between pleading and panic. He knew. He absolutely knew what was coming, and it was written all over him. There was this jittery, desperate energy rolling off him like heat waves off asphalt. I stayed calm, chatting with his mom about her new herb garden project and feigning polite interest as she droned on about fertilizer ratios and sun exposure, all while watching Tyler practically sweat through his button-down shirt. Course after course kept arriving like clockwork. Appetizers, entrees, bottles of wine that cost more than my weekly grocery bill, desserts that could have fed 3 people each. No one held back. It was like they were all determined to order as much as possible, to squeeze every drop out of the evening, without a single thought about who would actually be paying at the end. Finally, after the last plates had been cleared and the crumbs brushed from the table by a waiter who treated the whole affair like a sacred ritual, the check folder was placed gently at the edge of the table. It was almost reverent, the way it was set down, like they knew it contained something terrifying. For a long moment, no one moved. The conversation, which had been rolling along like a river, suddenly hit an invisible dam and dried up. The only sound was the faint clinking of Kyle's fork as he idly scraped it against his dessert plate. I sat back in my chair, folded my hands primly in my lap, and waited. Tyler stared at the check like it was a bomb about to go off. Then he cleared his throat, loud enough to break the brittle silence, and everyone at the table turned to look at him. His face was a strange shade of pink, and he looked like he wanted to be anywhere else in the world but there. He took a shaky breath, forced a strained, cringing smile onto his face, and said in a voice that cracked halfway through, "Thanks, Mom." There was a beat of pure, frozen confusion. I stared at him for a full second, letting the words settle into the heavy air between us. His ears were burning so bright red it was almost impressive. Half the table was staring at me like they had just witnessed something deeply unnatural, and the other half was gawking at Tyler like he had grown a second head. I kept my expression cool and pleasant, smiled the sweetest, fakest smile I could muster, and replied smoothly, "You're welcome, son." Without missing a beat, I pulled out my card and slid it into the check folder like it was a move I had been practicing my whole life. No hesitation. No drama. The waiter, who must have been trained to handle even the strangest situations with grace, came back without comment, scooped up the folder, and disappeared. A few minutes later, he returned with the receipt. I glanced at the total, $450 before tip, signed with a flourish like I was sealing a contract, and pushed it aside with a gentle tap of my fingers. The silence that settled over the table was so thick and uncomfortable it was almost a physical presence. His mother had dropped her fork onto her plate with a sharp clatter, her mouth slightly open in horror, like she was trying to process what she had just heard but her brain kept rejecting it. Kyle blinked rapidly, clearly trying to make sense of what had just transpired, then turned to Tyler with an incredulous look and said, "Wait, what was that?" I leaned forward slightly, still smiling like I was posing for a holiday card, and said, as sweetly as honey, "Oh, Tyler and I agreed that if I am going to keep paying for the entire family like some benevolent parent, he should show a little respect and call me Mom. Fair's fair, right?" The silence after that was deafening. You could hear the hum of the air conditioner, the distant clink of glasses from the other tables, even the soft shuffling of the waitstaff as they moved through the dining room. No one at our table spoke, no one even breathed for a solid minute. And then, like a dam finally bursting, Tyler's dad threw his head back and let out this booming, uncontrollable laugh that practically shook the silverware. He was laughing so hard he had to clutch his stomach, wiping tears from his eyes, gasping for air between howls of laughter. It was not polite chuckling. It was the kind of full-bodied, gut-deep laugh that made you feel embarrassed even if you were not the one he was laughing at. Tyler's mom, on the other hand, looked like she was going to faint. She stared at me with wide, horrified eyes, like I had committed some unforgivable social sin right there at the table. If looks could kill, I would have been reduced to ashes on the spot. Tyler himself looked like he wanted to sink into the floor and disappear. He sat there frozen, staring at the tablecloth, one hand nervously picking at a stray thread, refusing to meet anyone's eyes. His brothers were trying, and failing, to hold back snickers, trading amused glances across the table like they had just been given the best family gossip of the year. After that, dinner wrapped up with the efficiency of people desperate to escape. Small talk dried up almost immediately. No one dared order another round of drinks. Dessert plates were pushed aside half-eaten. The check had already been paid, but you could feel the collective need to just end the night as quickly as possible, like ripping off a band-aid. When we finally left and got home, the tension was still thick enough to choke on. Tyler sat heavily on the edge of the bed, shoulders slumped, looking like a kid who just got sent to the principal's office. For a long time he did not say anything, just sat there stewing in whatever complicated cocktail of emotions he was feeling. Then he finally broke the silence. He said he was sorry, admitted he had let things get wildly out of hand, confessed that he had been too afraid to push back on his family's expectations even when he knew deep down it was unfair to me. He said he realized things could not keep going the way they had been and suggested, very carefully, that we talk about expectations, moving forward, that we figure out some clear boundaries so that neither of us ended up resentful or feeling used again. About time, right? Update 3. This morning, after the dust had settled and neither of us could pretend everything was fine anymore, we finally sat down and had the serious conversation that had been a long time coming. There were no distractions, no television humming in the background, no phones buzzing with incoming texts. It was just the two of us, sitting across from each other at the kitchen table with the morning light spilling in through the windows, and a heavy, unspoken agreement that it was time to actually deal with everything we had been avoiding. Tyler started, which surprised me. For once, he did not try to deflect or make a joke or dance around the real issue. He admitted, without me having to drag it out of him, that he had been feeling an enormous amount of pressure for a long time. He said that in his family's eyes, I had somehow been labeled the rich one early on, and once that narrative had taken root, there was no pulling it out by the stem. It did not matter that my income was only modestly higher than his, or that I had my own bills and responsibilities. In their minds, I was the financial safety net, the person who would pick up the slack whenever it suited them. Tyler confessed that he had no idea how to push back against that perception without looking bad in front of them, without feeling like he was letting them down or, worse, making himself look weak. He looked genuinely ashamed as he told me that he knew, deep down, it had not been fair to dump that weight onto me. That somewhere along the line, what had started as small, occasional favors had grown into a full-blown expectation, and he had let it happen because confronting it felt too uncomfortable. He admitted that he had been selfish, that by avoiding conflict with them, he had put me in an impossible position. And then he apologized, not in the half-hearted, distracted way he sometimes had before, but sincerely. He owned it all without trying to minimize it, without making excuses. It felt like a pressure valve releasing between us. For the first time in weeks, maybe longer, I could actually breathe around him without feeling that simmering resentment tugging at the edges of every interaction. We talked for a long time after that. We agreed that moving forward, whenever we went out with his family or any group outings, we would split the bill evenly. No more assumptions, no more quiet glances, no more invisible burdens shifting onto my shoulders without a word. If one of us wanted to treat the group for something, it would be voluntary, an actual gift, not an unspoken obligation backed by guilt and expectations. We promised each other that there would be no pressure to cover anyone unless we genuinely wanted to, and that it would be discussed beforehand, not sprung on the spot. Tyler also said he was going to start setting clearer boundaries with his family about money. He acknowledged that part of the problem was how he had allowed them to believe I was happy to keep paying without ever correcting the narrative. He said he understood now that it was not just about money, it was about respect, about partnership, about not making me feel like I was being used under the guise of being part of the family. Hearing him say all of that out loud, in plain terms, was more healing than I expected. It felt like, finally, we were standing on the same side of the problem instead of me battling it alone while he stood somewhere in the fog pretending not to see. Funny enough, later that afternoon, while I was cleaning up around the house, I got a text from his mom. At first, when I saw her name pop up on my screen, my stomach dropped. I was fully bracing myself for some passive-aggressive message about how inappropriate or disrespectful I had been. But when I opened it, I actually laughed out loud. She said she had thought about the whole "mom" incident and that, after getting over the initial shock, she now thought it was absolutely hilarious. She even added a little laughing emoji at the end, like we were co-conspirators in some big family inside joke. It was so absurdly unexpected that I just sat there staring at my phone for a minute, wondering if I had crossed into some alternate universe. The relief that flooded through me was overwhelming. For the first time in what felt like forever, it seemed like maybe we could all laugh about it, move on, and build something better without this weird cloud of resentment hanging over everything. So, it looks like things are finally moving in a better direction. It is not perfect, and I know it will take time to fully rebuild that trust and balance, but it feels possible now. For the first time in a long while, it feels like Tyler and I are actually partners again, not just two people on opposite ends of an unspoken tug-of-war. Thanks to everyone who encouraged me to stand my ground. Honestly, that joke might have saved the relationship.